Okay, so I love this question.
Nerd Reactor, roll out.
Brec, how's it going?
Good, John, how are you?
Good, good. So yeah, I'm watching this movie and then I'm like, your character opposite of Stargirl. I'm like,
I
what is
know.
happening? Be a supportive sister.
Ooh, I know, but that's fun. It's good. And she
Yeah.
has an arc. She grows, she develops.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. She does. And so with this, I feel like because you've had your fair share of just like tense movies, thrillers, and upcoming projects where you got some scary movies too.
Yeah.
And I feel like now you're like, I don't know if it's like a trend or is it something that you're gravitating towards, like the horror genre?
I don't know. I was actually talking to my mom about this. I don't know if it's just like the vibe I give, but truly, like horror films just keep seeming to fall in my lap. And honestly, they're really intense and really fun. So I'm not complaining.
Oh yeah. And with this, the story, it's like in the 70s, right? And it's like kind of like that story of the boy who cried wolf. And then when something really happens, no one believes. And so what is it for you like the message for this movie? Like what do you think like people should get out of it?
For me, I feel, first of all, just like the awareness is I think as humans, it's so easy for us to be like, ah, that happens to people, but it could never happen to me. And so constantly being aware that this is a real thing that happens and it could happen to you. Um, and then also like better safe than sorry. I've lived in a lot of like major cities by myself. And with that, I'm a small girl, so I feel like I'm always having to be on the lookout. But I'd rather be a little bit suspicious and paranoid and communicate with my friends or like call if I'm nervous, call my friend and be on the phone with someone. It's like better safe than sorry.
Yeah, because it's definitely a different time, like because the movie set in the 70s, so compared to now. And with the setting of the 70s, right? Like, was there anything particular that got you excited? Like, whether it's like, oh, the drive-in theater or just Halloween back in the day?
Okay, so I love this question. Um, I've been talking a lot about the wardrobe, and I love Margaret's wardrobe, and just it most of it was proper like vintage from the 1970s. But I also got to drive a vintage car, which I had never gotten to do that before. So that was something that was really, really exciting to me. And I'm not much of a car person, but if I was to be a car person, I think I'd lean more towards like vintage stuff over like the sporty stuff. So that was cool.
So it was like, was it automatic or was it like different gears, manual?
I think it was manual because it was like a proper car from the 19s. I don't know how to drive manual. So I think they had a time, but I was only going like 20 yards and they're like, just go here and then stop. But it was really cool.
And oh, there's a thing. Recently, I've been having like dreams when I'm binging something. Like, let's say if I'm binging a murder mystery, I'm trapped in a murder mystery. I got to figure out
In your
solving the
dream?
case in my dreams. Yeah. And usually, like in a horror movie, if you watch it late at night, you'll have a dream. So I was wondering if you ever had anything like that happen to you.
Yes. Oh, so it's so funny that I love your question, so specific. Um, growing up, horror was my favorite thing. Every single Friday night, my dad and I would go to Blockbuster and pick out a new horror movie, or typically it was Goosebumps. Like that was our guilty pleasure was watching the new Goosebumps episode with each other. And as I've gotten older, I'm a little scaredy cat because I live by myself a lot of times when I'm like out filming in different locations. And so now I'm like, I don't want to be having nightmares because I no longer have like my parents downstairs to go hang out with. So yes, that does happen to me. And because of that, I try to be very careful about when and where and who I'm with horror films.
Okay. And that's all the time I have. But yeah, I just want to say pleasure and hopefully for me, like Stargirl, I want to see her in the DCU with James Gunn. So yeah. Madison, you're no stranger to thriller horror films, and I think like throughout your years of experience, uh, how does that have like prepared you for the man in the white van?
Oh gosh, I guess it's given me a lot of practice of getting to those really emotionally vulnerable places that you don't necessarily get a chance to um go on a daily basis. And yeah, just years of doing that and practicing getting my body and physically in that space also, or to reach and match that emotional level is something that I have learned throughout the years. So yeah, that definitely helped me in the process for this film.
Yeah, and there's one physical part of this where I'm watching you're like on horseback riding. So I was wondering like horseback riding, did you like practice that? Were you like an expert before?
I wouldn't say an expert. I did do a little bit of horseback riding growing up, and I love horses. I love animals. And I took a few kind of refresher lessons right before filming, but actually, horseback riding was one of my favorite parts of the film. Anytime I got to be on a horse, I was super excited about it, and I loved that aspect of the movie.
Yeah. And what is it about the horror genre or the thriller genre just excites you so much? Like you just gravitate towards that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the challenges that come with it. Oftentimes, when you have a horror or thriller story, it innately comes with a character who has to go through some really tumultuous things and situations. And so for me, any role that challenges me, whether it's emotionally or physically, piques my interest. And this film certainly has that.
Yeah. And I think for me, recently I've been having this weird thing where I'm binging something like a show, or let's say I'm watching something late at night and then I just have dreams about it. So if it's a murder mystery, I have to like solve a murder mystery in my dream. So I was wondering if that's the thing that has happened to you, like whether it's like a horror movie or not.
No, thank God. I would be so scared. I remember when I did The Conjuring 2, people would ask me that, like, if I had bad dreams. And thank God I never did. And same for this movie. I never had like nightmares or anything of the sort.
Yeah. And in this movie, there was like we get to really like see your character and because at the beginning it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf story, and you're trying to like you embellish your stories ahead of time, but then later on when something happens, like your family doesn't believe you. And what was like the message you want people to take out of this with that theme?
Yeah, well, first of all, that was actually an aspect that about Annie that gave me a little bit of pause, and I had to really work to get into that innocence of, exaggerating stories a little bit to warrant maybe some attention that she wasn't necessarily getting. Um, but once I landed on that in a place that felt good, I think the message that I would hope people take away is just to believe women, believe young girls, believe victims, believe people in general. And, it's always better to be safe than sorry. If something's happening, um, yeah, it's better to prepare for it and work against it and it not necessarily be as dangerous as you initially thought than to have something like this happen where you're unprepared and it ends up being really, really bad. And then also to just keep speaking up for yourself. If people don't listen, find someone who will.
Yeah. And I think with this, your family, I believe I would want to believe like yeah, some sooner or later it'll get to the point where like, all right, I believe you.
Right.
And for I want to ask you a fun question where if you had to like just be trapped in like one genre, which genre would it be? Whether it's horror, whether it's like a family film or a comedy?
I think I would say just a drama. I feel like a point blank drama gives you a lot of variety to work with. Something that's not necessarily directly thriller or horror, but still has some of those elements that we love, with the emotional vulnerability and complexity, and even telling the story of real life characters or real life people. So yeah, I'd probably pick drama.
Sky, Gavin, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I feel like okay, so Gavin, you've had some experiences with horror films, scary films, and Sky, maybe Muppets Haunted Mansion, that's like scary, right?
No.
So I want to ask, okay, so Gavin, what pointers or tips would you have for Sky for like just the horror genre in general?
Um, so I think for me, I kind of stick in the character even when I'm not on scene or when I'm in between scenes, I kind of stick in my character. Uh, so I think it's, a lot of people seem fake whenever they're acting and stuff. So I like to not have that happen. And I don't know. I don't know.
And has Sky, what would you have? What tips would you have for Gavin for interacting with the Muppets?
That was so long ago. I really don't even remember that, but I know that they were fun to work with. It was a great experience. So I would say just enjoy the time if you ever get to work with the Muppets.
And so with the Man in the White Van, thing is the 70s, right? And so I was wondering if there was anything from that era where you're like, wow, this is kind of cool, like whether it's the drive-in theater or like just talking on the phone with wires.
Yeah. I love all the cars. I'm a big car guy. So whenever I see old cars, I always, look at them and I always think it's so cool that the landline, that was super big thing back then. My mom would tell me a lot about that. And, it was just kind of cool. And I love the set. I love the clothes. I love everything. Loved everything about it.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same. The wardrobe for me was like the number one thing that I was so excited to get into. I feel like the style in the 70s was just so unique and different. So our wardrobe stylist on set, she did an amazing job. And of course, the cars too. I love old school cars. So it was definitely so much fun to be able to see all of them lined up when we had the drive-in scene.
Oh yeah, and I feel like because both of you are like the very supportive characters to Madison, and what is it like just being there, like just I'm there to help you out whenever you need me.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Gavin.
Oh, no, you can go first. It's fine.
No, I feel like it was really fun and Patty, her character and their bond was just so close and really seeing that on camera was okay. Patty is a good friend to Annie. And I feel like she was a great support system for her. And I feel like that's someone that you kind of need every day in life, no matter if it's fighting someone in a white van or just regular daily basis stuff. So that
Yeah.
was something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, for sure. I can speak to that, Um, I think for my character, it's my sister, and I feel like I always believed in her stories, and I think they were, pretty funny, pretty funny stories. Um, so whenever this, white van, no one really believed her. So I feel like it was important for me as the brother to, try to protect my older sister in a way.
Yeah. And I think like with me, there's like a recent trend for me, like something with horror movies when you're watching it late and then all of a sudden you're having dreams about it. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that has ever happened to you where you're late night and then you're like trapped in a horror movie.
Yeah. So whenever I was younger, I used to be super scared of the Grinch. So I remember waking up one morning on a school night and I was just like crying, that I was like a lot younger and I was crying to my mom. And I mean, yeah, I used to always have scary dreams about the Grinch because I don't know, he's just a creepy guy. He's so creepy.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've had dreams about different horror films, but I love horror so much. Those dreams never freaked me out. I was like, oh, that was exciting.
So that would mean Sky, you're down to do more horror films and projects
Mhm,
and all that.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And I guess like if you were to be able to choose like one genre to do for the rest of your life, what would it be? Like whether it's drama, comedy, horror films.
For me, it's definitely drama. I kind of that's where I'm best at. I feel like I'm best at drama. Drama, action, and drama, action, and horror films. I love working on horror films. That's probably one of my favorites because, seeing the behind the scenes and seeing it really form and all the like special effects is amazing, and watching it form together and watching it later is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I would say for me, maybe probably horror and comedy. I think those are my two favorites so far.
So just combine horror and comedy left. So I guess another just like fun question. I guess if you were to be just your characters in this one to be to help out someone in a previous project that you've worked in, which project would it be?
That's a hard question.
Hmm. I would say this film Sharrows that I did because in the movie I end up getting kidnapped. It's like this whole thing. So I feel like Patty would be great at helping in that situation. And she's a girl's girl. So she would try to get me out of that situation in a second. So definitely that.
I can see Patty doing
Uh,
that.
yeah, so for me, I have a movie coming out called Unbreakable Boy, and I definitely feel like my character would help, because I play as the protective brother, and it's kind of the same thing in Unbreakable Boy. Um, and that comes out very soon. And you'll see like my character in this is exactly like my character in Unbreakable
Oh
Boy.
wow.
I mean, I'm very protective over, my family, and yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a double threat, like just two protective brothers. Like, watch out. Warren, how's it going?
It's good, John. Good. How about yourself?
Good, good. Yeah, it's the week after Thanksgiving, so
I know we're gearing up for a horror thriller December, right?
yeah. And I love the release date, Friday the 13th, and I'm pretty sure there was like been many different release dates before that, but yeah.
Yeah, I know that I think Relativity and Legion M, who have both been so huge advocates for the film and so supportive of trying to find the right spot. Initially, they were thinking of October and Halloween because a little of the film takes place on Halloween night, but ultimately, they wanted to give it its own due, and they saw the Friday the 13th in December and thought, ooh, this would be fun to do as counter programming for all the holiday fare. So we're all on board with that, and so we moved the date to December 13th, and I'm excited.
Oh yeah. And when I'm watching this movie, I enjoy these 70s settings just with the cars, the drive-in, just calling on the phone. And for you, just being there on set or just, maybe come up with ideas. What was like the most satisfying thing to see? Like when you were there, like, oh, we finally like we're capturing this.
Oh my God, the way you just said that reminded me that the first 3 weeks of filming, we were doing all of the family scenes, and so because we were doing that, because they're part of the texture of the story, as but we weren't really getting into all of the thriller parts. So when we finally finished filming all the family scenes, I remember we filmed our first scene that was really like, it was like Madison at the window as Annie, having seen, the predator outside, and we kind of pushed in on her as she's turning away from the window and sort of having this realization that, oh my God, he's like outside my house. And like I remember calling cut on that, and then looking at Madison and kind of looking around the room, and I was like, all right, now we're making a movie. And then I became like a joke, and she ended up, for my birthday later, she ended up making a hat that on the front of it said, now we're making a movie. Just because she was like, what have we been doing the last 3 weeks? But it was really more of a notion to like, we're getting into the fun, the thriller, the horror of it all. Because it sort of felt like we were making, like a family film for a couple of weeks there.
Oh yeah. And because like the genre, right? It's like it could be horror, thrillers. Like, what do you specifically think? Like, is this like more on the horror side or more on the thriller side? Because I know like people online are arguing about what is which is which.
Right. Oh no, I have seen that. I mean, it's a thriller, 100% a thriller. But when you look, but there's horror elements in it. I mean, when you look at Jaws, for example, Jaws is a thriller, but there are horrific elements in it. But at the core, it's a thriller. Horror I really think is something that has a supernatural angle to it, typically, in some capacity, or a gore angle to it. And this is really, I think the fun for me as a director was really playing with the theater of the mind in this, and not allowing what you don't see to sort of weigh on you versus what you do see.
With a movie, right? You always have to have some kind of like creative license in terms of the story, like because it's based on true events, and whether it's like through the pacing or like certain timelines that they fit. So, what were the challenges for you in just trying to craft this?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is really, well, outside of a production schedule, right? But it's trying to be as prepared as we could in telling a story that was at the core truthful to the given circumstances of the victims and of the survivor, and at the same time being able to be true to that, and then also tell a story that is engaging and fun if for the audience, so that it should feel like a roller coaster ride for them in the end, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and if it stirs some questions for them to go poking around to find out who this serial killer was, and look up the cold cases that are still pending that are out there, and we're able to bring some attention to that, then I think we've done our job.
Yeah. And last question for me is recently I've been having this weird trend of like whenever I'm binging, or if it's a horror movie, I would have dreams about it like it was horrific or a murder mystery and I gotta figure out how to solve the murder case. And I was wondering if that has happened to you like recently as of late, whether you're binging or maybe you're on the set and then you have like dreams about it.
So, well, I mean, I got a call after we finished post production from the detectives, the cold case detectives, who I'd reached out to and never got a chance to meet with before we went into production. And they asked if I wanted to meet, and I absolutely did. And we sat down for about 3 hours. And after that meeting, it basically opened a door that I knew that I couldn't close. They revealed that there were several cold cases, open still. They're still trying to identify bodies. They're still trying to work with the serial killer to figure out if there are more victims and where they are, where they remain. And that actually kind of heartened me to know that that work was still being done almost 50 years later after our story takes place. And it also really motivated me into wanting to tell that story as a docu-series, in a very different kind of way, and focus more on the serial killer and the family as opposed to the victims.
All right, Warren. Yeah, thanks for taking the time for the interview. And yeah, can't wait for when everyone else gets to watch the movie on Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. Love it.